Welcome, everyone, to episode 66 of the Looks Like a Movie podcast. My name is Kevin. I'm here with Doug, Owen, and our returning guest this week, Alex from the Escape Pod podcast. And today we're going to be talking about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, as well as the previous three Apes films, or just the franchise in general, I guess. But first, we can start with what we watched this past week. Alex, since you're our guest, if you'd like to go first, you don't have to do the whole week. You could just pick whatever since.
No, this is good. I probably should go first, considering that I have watched maybe a fraction of what the rest of you guys have watched. As always, I watched a movie called Last Stop in Yuma County. I loved it. I
It's a
thought
new
it was,
movie, right?
yeah. I think it's coming out relatively soon.
I heard about that.
I thought it was a lot of fun. I definitely highly recommend it. I got to go to a early screening of it. I got to take my little brother, and me and my little brother were just having the time of our life. It's not a period, but it's 50s, 60s, 70s is the time period. It's a western. It was just there's a standoff. There are bank robbers, whatever. It was so fun. They don't make movies like that anymore, et cetera, et cetera. You hear that about every movie nowadays. And saw Owen's least favorite movie of all time, The Fall Guy, super recently. I thought it was a great time, but doesn't surprise me at all that Owen hated it. And then I saw Godzilla X Kong for the second time, and I thought I was gonna hate it the second time. I was like, yeah, this was like a fun popcorn movie the first time, whatever. I will admit I fell asleep for a good part of it, but it's super fun. It's super fun. It's exactly what it needs to be. I'm happy that that's the highest grossing Godzilla movie of all time, and I'm happy we're getting a sequel. And then I'm trying to think that may be it. Um, oh oh X-Men 97 is going on right now. So I've watched
Okay.
that latest episode 9. I've watched that now 3 times this week because we watch
Wow.
it night one, we watch it at midnight, and then we do like a group night every Wednesday night with our Discord. We watch it, and then Rachel, my girlfriend, couldn't join for that. So she wanted to watch that episode with me in case she had any questions. So we watched that like on Zoom together. And then quick thoughts. X-Men 97 is probably the best thing that the MCU has ever done. I've been saying this since episode 3. I've known this since episode 5. I don't know if you guys, like, again, X-Men 97 is
About
unbelievable.
it.
And it's so different than everything the MCU does, and it's creative and new and fresh, and the animation is great, and the writing is really good. It's like everything that the MCU isn't, everything that like makes the MCU bad, this show is like spectacular at. So of course they fired the guy behind it,
Yeah, I saw. Yeah.
Yeah. But no,
Are they nearing the finale?
yeah, the finale's this week. The finale's
Oh
in
shit.
a
Okay.
day and a half. Yeah, 2 days. Yeah. So yeah,
I
Very
so
was
exciting.
I was considering watching it, but it's the three of us aren't usually that locked into TV shows in general.
mhm,
But I
mhm.
was considering because every week a new episode comes out, and I see people just like saying the most positive stuff about it
Yeah,
on
I
Twitter.
people seem to really like it.
No.
I
It's like it's shocking, like how good it is. It's crazy. It's like even Andrew, who's like an MCU purist, is like nothing will ever be better than Avengers 1 for me. Like that's his like whole shtick. And like we just did an interview with somebody, our next guest that's going to be on the pod. They hadn't seen X-Men 97 either. And Andrew was like, it's probably the best thing the MCU's ever done. It's not my favorite, but it's probably the best. Like it really is. It's like really impressing everybody. I do highly recommend it to you guys or your audience if you guys haven't seen it.
Is this like a limited series situation, or is it like are they going to make
No,
more? I don't know any of the details, so
no, it is, it's the MCU. So this season is
oh
coming out.
boy.
It's 10
Okay.
episodes. It's gonna be a huge cliffhanger, I assume, episode 10, and
Right.
then season 2 is already done. They're currently working on
Oh
season
wow.
3. Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild.
The first two
Um
the first 2 seasons are the guy, Bo DeMaio, and then he was fired, and so season 3 is when it's gonna drop off a cliff, we assume.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But that's what
Maybe
I
I'll
watched
maybe I'll
this
check it
week.
out.
Yeah.
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 Okay, we could go in order here. I'll go. I started the week by watching How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, one of the great rom-coms that I have not seen. It's very nice when you find one of those because I go back and watch a lot of these old rom-coms and I'm like not that impressed. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days does not have that problem. That it was really fucking good. It was so cute. I watched Crank after that. I cranked it the next morning. Really, really fun. Really fun movie. I saw that tweet. There's like a tweet going around right now of someone
Yes.
like someone tweeting the
Yeah.
scene from Crank, and they were like the most useless sex scene ever. I'm like, that quite literally is
That
the
is
most important sex scene that has
that is
ever
the most
happened. Like,
effective bait for like any, because the
Like-
entire sex scene discourse, like that clip is like the most. He's like literally needs to have sex.
yeah.
Like, to
But
change.
then everybody who hasn't seen the movie will watch the
Yeah.
clip and complain about it. So it's like the perfect
It's
tweet to
perfect.
get as
It's
many
perfect.
views as possible.
Yeah.
The movie's very fun though.
It's- yeah.
It was such a blast. I watched The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, my first John Ford movie, and I think I'm gonna watch Stagecoach next. I think that's
Oh,
the
hell yeah.
plan when I get around to another one. I really liked that though. It helps that Jimmy Stewart was in it. It was just like more and more
best,
becoming my like favorite actor ever. Like he's just the best. I watched the roast of Tom Brady. Did anybody watch the Tom Brady roast? I did not think it was very funny. I don't know if I'm just I don't know if it's just like me being annoying, but like man, the thing was like 3 hours long. There was like 2 good sets. There was like 2 people who were really funny, and then like half of the thing was just dedicated to expatriates telling jokes, and I was like, these guys cannot read a teleprompter. They're not very funny. Like it was just a lot to sit through. But whatever. I'm sure other people had a blast. I watched A Tale of Springtime, Romare. I got one more in that 4 seasons to get through, and I have the Criterion, so that was nice. I watched it on my new TV. Lovely experience. Planet of the Apes stuff I could skip over. I watched the other night The Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant.
Yeah, is everybody watching that because of that the red carpet clip?
The Jeff Goldblum.
With Jeff Goldblum.
Wait, I don't even know which one
Oh,
you're
you
talking
didn't know
about.
it?
No way. No way.
Jeff Gold. Is it the one where he's like flirting with someone? I saw a clip of him this past week, like flirting with someone on the red
what's
carpet.
the guy's name? The movie camera guy with the big hair.
Oh, Reese.
Reese.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Reese is interviewing Jeff Goldblum, and he asks him, "What like any movie character would you want to be at the Met Gala?" And he says a character from that movie, and then like
I did not see that.
yeah, it like it's like that's
wow.
yeah, it's
That's
very
crazy that
funny.
you didn't see that, but you watched the movie.
No,
Like,
yeah. So I
that's-
was I've been like meaning to our mutual friend Sarah is a big Fassbinder fan, and I've been meaning to get around to watching some of his movies, and like I was just looking, and that seemed like a good place for me to start. I was like, this seems like one that I would be the most interested in probably. Surprise it was. I gave it 5 stars. Like it was really good. But yeah, no, I didn't see that clip. And then I finished watching Baby Reindeer yesterday. Speaking of TV, actually watched a show. It's only 7 episodes, so I'm not going to give myself too much credit. But interesting show. I don't really know how to talk about it on the podcast, so I think maybe we'll just skip over that. But
people keep talking about Baby Reindeer. Did you watch it, Alex? People keep talking about that show, and it feels like the internet's trying to make me watch a fucking Netflix series. I'm not watching that shit, dude.
I'm
not
gonna be
watching
honest.
that.
I'm not the most in love with the show as a whole and like how it's made, but by the end, I was like really interested in this guy just being like as vulnerable. Like you kind of have to commend it. I'm like, this guy is just really like putting his whole life. The main actor in the show is also the creator of the show and is also telling the true story of his life. And like to do all that and like play a character where you're like, I mean, it's yourself, but like he's like reliving his past trauma, like these like awful things that happened to him. It's kind of a lot. Like it's so that part of it like touched me, but the actual like show, I was like, it's it's good enough. I mean, I watched all 7 episodes, so that says enough, I guess. What did you watch, Doug?
Oh wait, I haven't gone. I watched. I had a very small week today, a little bit of a diet week. I was doing some other stuff. I watched the 4 most recent Planet of the Apes movies for this podcast, and then I watched a cool movie. It's called Missing. It's a 2008 Shu Hark film.
So not the Missing that I've seen, not
No.
the newer one.
Nope. It's a much way more obscure. It has literally I was the 400th log on Letterboxd for this movie.
Oh, in
It's
addition, Costa Gavras has made a movie called Missing. Just putting that out there. Anyway, continue.
oh, it's cool. It's like a Chinese like genre drama. It's like a horror mystery. Like I thought it was gonna be like a sci-fi movie based off of like the poster, but it's not. It's I don't know. It's kind of weird. But it was cool. I like watching Shu Hark films. I'm like a third of the way through his filmography now. But yeah. That's a cool movie I watched this week.
Nice. Owen.
All right, so last week I was talking about how I was going through Star Wars. So I finished my like Star Wars watch that ended with The Rise of Skywalker. Then I did some Apes prep for this podcast, and then I watched Tony Scott's The Last Boy Scout, which was probably the best thing I saw all week. I really like this movie a lot. Tony Scott's kind of like the best. This is a movie from the 90s with Bruce Willis and Damon Wayans. Very good movie. I highly recommend that. I was trying to post a TikTok about it, and TikTok's been really weird recently, so it's not up anymore. But really great. The opening of this movie is fantastic. It's like there's a football game, and it has like this Friday night football like theme song going on, and then it's like pouring rain. It's really cool. It reminds me somewhat of Snake Eyes in the way of like the photography of like a sporting event, and just like the way to make that like extremely cinematic in like a heightened way. So really like that. I saw Pool Man in theaters. I did a little triple feature with the New Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I saw Pool Man, which is a movie that Chris Pine directed and starred in, and it got like really panned critically, and like no one liked it. And he was like, "Did I make like a really bad movie?" And he went back and he rewatched it. He's like, "No, I really love this. It's bizarre in like the way that only an actor can make this kind of movie, because it's like very like performance centric, but like performances are all like weird. It's like a comedy movie. It's very like parody of like it's like a Chinatown parody. Danny
Well, I heard it
DeVito's
was
good in it.
very Big Lebowski, like Coen Brothers. That's what I heard.
Yeah, but it just operates in a different like note than those movies, because those movies are still like, I don't know, it's very bizarre. It's very bizarre.
I hate to interrupt you because I'm sure you've
No.
seen many other things, but I have to say this. So yesterday, me and Andrew were considering going to see a movie. The
Yeah.
options were Terret, Abigail, and both of those movies are getting critically panned and
Yeah.
whatever. So like we're like, oh, we don't know. And he goes, why don't we go see the Chris Pine movie,
Yeah.
Pool Man? And I said to him, I said, well, Andrew, it's getting critically panned. And he's like, no. And I was like, I assume it did worse critically than Abigail and Terret. And he was like, no. And I was like, Andrew, the only person that I saw say anything nice about Pool Man at all is Owen. And he goes, we're not watching it.
Yeah. I was like, I give it like 2 stars. I think it's like totally acceptable. It's not like the worst movie ever made or anything, but it's not good. Again, Danny DeVito's cool in it.
I didn't even know he was in it.
Yeah, I was like watching the movie. I was like, I haven't seen Danny DeVito in anything in a while, but he can act. He's good in that movie. He's really funny. Chris Pine was interesting because he does like his voice is very it's kind of he has a unique voice and it kind of stands out. And it's very monologue-y. It's weird. And then I watched saw Aggro Drift in theaters, which was
yes,
really great. Really fantastic. Finally got to see that. The new Harmony Korine movie, entirely in infrared. Very weird, interesting, like singular experience. It's playing like limited for like a week at like
5 cities in America.
Yeah. It's like, but if you can see it, I mean, definitely recommend it. It's an interesting experience. I have no idea when it will come out on digital, but I do recommend seeing it once in your life because it's just such a singular film that kind of has an interesting kind of Harmony does a really good job of like collecting a vibe and processing that vibe and putting it into like a visual form. I think like with Trash Humpers and Spring Breakers and stuff, this is very much that. In this, it feels very new, but it's not gonna be for everyone. I know a lot of people don't hate it, but I think it's an interesting thing that's worth checking out.
We didn't talk about this at all, but did you like the 1 second music video that he directed?
I didn't care for it much.
Okay.
It's not that it's very different. I wasn't crazy about that. But yeah, and then I saw the TV Glow last night, which we're gonna talk about more next week. So I won't go into too much on that. But Jane was there. We will
dedicate a whole episode to it.
Yeah, Jane was there for the Q&A, and I think I'm gonna try to see it again before we do the full episode on it, because it's a lot and it goes by very fast, for better or for worse. And I think it's a good movie. We'll talk about it more next week. But Jane was there for the Q&A, which is interesting. I think they had some interesting like responses to questions and stuff.
Right.
That like it was a good Q&A. There's not sometimes Q&As are kind of not great. The aggro drift, it was funny. The aggro drift Q&A it was at an Alamo, right? And I get the ticket to see the movie like right away, and it didn't have a Q&A at the beginning of it, and they like added on a Q&A later, and it was the guy who did like the soundtrack. And then we get there, and then they're like, we don't know like what the situation is with the guy. And then basically after the movie, they come out, like he was like supposed to intro it and whatever, and they come out and they're like, there was a scheduling issue. The Q&A is actually tomorrow's show, so they gave us like a free ticket or whatever. But it was like I didn't buy the ticket to do the Q&A. They just added it on. It wasn't like someone I knew or cared about. So it was like, okay, I'll just get this free Alamo ticket, I guess. Weird, but yeah, that was my.
I hate when there's like a fucking issue at my AMC, and then all they do is give out a free ticket, and I'm like, dude, I already have a Stubbs member. Like, I can't do anything. This. Like, I'm never gonna use.
It's like the Alamo thing. It's like,
give me money.
I literally, that was like my last night in Boston. Like, I'm probably not gonna go up to the Alamo anytime soon. To use that, but
that's tough. Okay. We can talk about some Apes now. I figure it would be best to talk about the trilogy that preceded this new movie first a little bit before we get into Kingdom stuff, if we're down for that. We don't have to go into a ton of detail, but we could talk about what our favorite of the trilogy is and what our relationship to it, I guess. Alex, I figure you'd want to go first. I know you're probably the biggest fan of this trilogy out of the four of us here.
This is why I'm here, baby. Yeah. This is why we are here. So notoriously, I'm a big War for the Planet of the Apes guy. That is in my Letterboxd top 4. I don't know if it'll ever leave that movie. So when these movies were coming out, like I saw Rise in theaters in 2011. Mm-hmm. I saw Dawn in theaters in 2014. Like that was easily like my favorite, movie series. That's like, they come every 3 years, but I was like, oh, I like can't wait opening day to see the next one. And just War did everything I wanted it to be. It was, I imagine it to me, it's, was a similar feeling to how I imagine many people went into Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Back in the day. It's just, it did everything I wanted it to. It was a very emotionally satisfying conclusion for me. It probably solidified Andy Serkis as probably my favorite actor. That his portrayal of Caesar, Caesar is maybe my favorite character in fiction. I just love what War does. I love Dawn. I have no problem with anybody that says Dawn is better. I totally get it. But just, recently I rewatched them last year because my roommates, none of them had ever seen them. And so I got to show them all 3 of them. And rewatching Dawn, I was like, oh, like maybe I was too low on Dawn. Like I remember liking Rise better than Dawn. Like Dawn is an unbelievable movie. Dawn is easily... Like I thought to myself, I was like, you know what? If Dawn is everybody's favorite, I'm fine with that. I still prefer War, but like Dawn could be argued to me as the better movie. And now recently, everybody on Twitter is now rewatching these movies.
Mhm.
And I had a moment to myself where I saw a couple of clips from War, a couple of stills from War. Fuck you guys. I am off of the Dawn train. Dawn is not as good as War. War is better shot. War looks better.
No, it doesn't. No, you're crazy.
Oh,
You're
you're
crazy.
The texture of the snow on their fur is
I do
just
like the
such
snow. I
a
do like the
better
snow.
aesthetic than the rain in Dawn. Sorry. Not happening. No. The scene with Nova and the flowers, the cherry blossom, maybe the best looking scene in the trilogy. I'm pretty married to War as being the best. Like, yeah.
What would you estimate that split is between Dawn and War for what people's favorite is? Because I feel like it's pretty close to.
I would disagree.
half.
I'd say it's like 70-30
Yeah, I
Oh,
was going to say like
interesting.
70-30 seems right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For War, you mean?
for Dawn. For Dawn.
Yeah, for Dawn.
Like the
Oh.
Dawn being most people's favorite.
Yeah, Dawn is
Oh,
like
really?
kind of considered the best
Interesting.
one.
Dawn is like
I-
2 letterbox points like higher on like the
Is
average rating than both of them. Yeah, than the other
Wes
2.
Ball himself even said it is the best one.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But
Uh,
yeah, that's my
yeah.
take. I'm a war goon till I die. That movie is awesome.
That's,
yeah, I have.
Oh, they have the same letterbox rating.
Oh, do they? I thought
Doug
Dawn
just
was higher.
lied, so that was crazy.
And not that Rotten Tomatoes.
Not that like
is the be all,
letterbox
end
is,
all.
you know,
War has a higher letterbox score.
right?
I mean, not letterbox. Excuse me,
Rotten Tomatoes
score.
like critic
Like-
score. Yeah,
Yes,
I saw that.
Yeah, I also watched these movies in theaters as they came out when I was a kid. This was my first time, I guess, watching them
As a
since
kid, you
I
were like
was in
30 years
high
old when War
school.
came out.
Okay, whatever. Shut the fuck up. This is my first time watching them since high school, I guess. I used to like really adore these. Like I used to like really feel the same way, I would say. I guess that didn't last because I would have rewatched them earlier than this if I actually cared about them that much. But like rewatching them, I was like, yeah, they're entertaining enough. I just like, man, I know Doug got a lot of shit for for the tweet about Rise. Is it Rise or Dawn? Rise is the first one, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Rise.
Like I was watching Rise, and like halfway through the movie, I'm just like, my memory of that movie is so different than what I was watching, and I was like, this is like so dumb. Like not like dumb in terms of like being a bad movie, but just like straight up like the content of what they're talking about and like what happens. I was like, I do not remember. I used to think these movies were so like sophisticated and smart, and like granted I was like 13 watching this one, but like wow, I was watching it and I was just like, this is a totally different experience. And that's not like my actual knock on the movie. My actual knock on the movie is that I just don't really like it that much. But much different watching them now as a 24-year-old compared to when I watched them in high school, I'd say. I still like at least the 2 Matt Reeves ones. Thought I would like them more though. But I like after I finished watching these ones and before Kingdom, I know we kind of had a conversation off mic about the potential of me going and watching like the originals and stuff. But like I was texting my friend after I saw this new one and I was like, man, I like, even though they're entirely different movies, I was like, I think I'm just aped out. Like, I think I've just had enough for a while. I was like, I think I need to take a break after watching these. Like, I've done enough of it. You know, I know they're completely different movies, but now I'm in no mood to go back and watch the originals right now. So that's the effect that the newer trilogy had on me.
Alex, have you seen the older movies?
Only 68.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
That's the best one.
Yeah, no,
Right.
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, you guys could talk, Doug and Owen, you guys could talk about, I guess, like some of the older ones if you want to, in addition to however you feel
Doug,
about
go.
these newer ones.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I love 68. I think 68 is an all-timer. I mean that's like a real like tentpole kind of like classic like pantheon of sci-fi movies in my
Right.
estimation. I kind of realized this yesterday because new Apes movie people love the fucking monkeys, dude. People love the apes.
Really
So
love them. More
everybody-
defenders than you would think there are. A lot more.
I'm not even there yet, but yeah, but people are like coming out and like posting like stuff about the old movies, and I saw somebody was posting clips of some of Charlton Heston's like line delivery, and he plays the main character, the human character in the first one, coming out and posting like his line delivery from the first one, and I kind of realized, I was like, man, this is just one of my favorite performances in any movie. This guy is so it's so fucking awesome, like old Hollywood genre stuff. I thought I have seen these movies. I think I've only seen Rise as a kid, because that movie's old. That movie came out in 2011.
So this was your first time watching Dawn and War.
Yeah, I like 100%. I've never seen Dawn and War before. I just kind of assumed that I had.
Right. I do that sometimes with the movies that are like 10 years old. I'm like, I feel like I watched this when it came out, and then I watched the movie and I'm like, I definitely don't remember any of this.
Yeah, I was watching Dawn and I'm like, oh, for sure nope.
Yeah.
Never seen this before. And my take is, listen, these aren't like my thing, which is fine. I thought they might have been my thing when I was going to watch them. But Dawn and War are cool. Dawn is really cool. It's like a Hamlet riff.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Dawn was definitely my favorite watching them back.
And there's a moment in Dawn where Koba is like riding fucking horseback, holding 2 machine guns, and it's like that's like probably the coolest thing in any of these movies. Is like that very specifically. And then War, I thought War was gonna be like, so how Dawn was a Hamlet riff, like a little bit more of like the Lion King kind of like narrative vibe. I thought that War was going to be like an Apocalypse Now riff. I thought it was going to be like straight up like kind of crazy, and then it's like
which it hints at.
in the first scene.
It hints at like a couple more. It does the Full Metal Jacket thing too with the helmets. Like I was like, oh, this is.
And then it just becomes the Great Escape.
Yeah,
for like the last 2/3 of the movie, and like they're in like a monkey concentration camp, and I'm like, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I signed up for at all. But it's fun. There's like plot stuff that's kind of that's kind of dumb, but it's fine. Rise, though, the first one with James Franco, directed by Rupert Wyatt, that movie sucks. I think that movie's bad, like straight up. And I was so like, I watched it and I was so confident in my estimation of this film, where I was like, man, this movie's like not good. People must just like only like the sequels, like people must only consider the sequels to be good, and like this just kind of gets like looped in when everybody talks about them. I fucking tweeted like the worst tweet of my life, where I was basically just like,
or the best.
Yeah, it could be your best work, arguably.
I was just like, man, why does nobody talk about how this movie kind of sucks? And I'm talking about Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Instantly, like 5 million views over the course of the day, like over 1,000 fucking quote retweets. Like people telling me to kill myself, people telling me that I was retarded, people like the craziest, like I did not realize that fucking Rupert Wyatt, that these monkeys just in general have fucking shooters like that. I swear to God, it's just because of people like the Dawn and War that they're grouping in Rise with that. It's crazy.
Yeah,
so I learned my lesson.
I don't love that whole they do the same thing. That movie does the same thing that like the shit I hated about that Guardians of the Galaxy movie, the most recent one, where it's like they just like they really like get you so invested in this movie by just having like an hour of animal abuse, and then it's just like, yeah, we really got to care about these guys, don't we? I mean, we're just watching these apes get abused for like an hour by these awful people, and
that's what
I'm just like, I really hate when they manipulate you like that. Like it's just just bad writing, kind of.
Yeah, I think it's kind of bad writing. That I don't like, and okay, now I'm gonna get fucking crucified again if we post like a clip of this. But I don't like Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Right,
yeah, it's a bad movie,
which is fine. I know that people like it, but
I think it's okay.
But I know that in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, I'm watching it, I'm like, man, they really just spend the first third of this movie establishing that Caesar is like a human, has like human intelligence, and is like basically like a person, and just to spend the next third of the movie showing him get abused after they establish that you should have extra empathy for him. And I'm like, come on, man, you didn't have to like do all of this. Like, I don't know. Anyways,
that's a lot. Oh, and how did you? Oh, Alex.
yeah. Alex, jump in, fight.
I like Rise quite a bit.
Yeah,
I think Rise is great.
And you also like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
I really like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Sorry.
Yeah,
I like both of those movies.
I thought Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was better than most of the MCU. I'll say that much. But that's a different pod, I think.
That's a pod we will not be having.
That's a pod we will not be having. Owen,
so
how do you feel about these?
Let's start at
Actually,
number
talk
9,
about the old ones,
right? Let's start at number 9. We have Rise of the Planet of the Apes, right?
Okay.
So 2 of my favorite actors, right? John Lithgow, James Franco, delivering career worst performances
from both of them.
John Lithgow is doing some stuff we've never seen before, man.
Delivering stinkers, right? Delivering stinkers. Tom Felton is in this.
Oh my god, I didn't even bring up Tom Felton's so bad in this movie. Like, what the fuck? Those are the
yeah. So like it's like Rupert Wyatt, kind of not a good director. Andy Serkis is.
What did he make? Has he
The Gambler?
Starring
Mark Wahlberg.
Oh, I remember liking that movie a lot when I was 14.
yeah. I would rewatch that one. I think Andy Serkis as Caesar is cool in that one. I like the stuff on the bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, when they're like stuff's like silly.
Like after an hour of the movie.
I don't like the movie. I'm just saying there is a positive of that. I think that scene is cool.
Yeah, let Owen be nice. Let Owen give a compliment.
The rest of the movie is garbage. But I like the whole bit where the one of the guys jumps on the plane or whatever. That's fun. I'm sure some of you know this, but Tobey Maguire was up for the Franco role, and then there was like contract issues or whatever.
Fucking bizarre.
And so then they just went to the other guy in Spider-Man with Franco, and it makes more sense that they would want Tobey Maguire to play like the scientist guy than James Franco, because James Franco just feels miscast and like it's weird. But the movie would have been bad anyway. Next is War, and no, I mean like next in my like order of like the liking of them. But yeah, Dawn is next in the but I think this movie's fine. I like the snow. I really do like the snow. I think some of the effects looks great, but it's a long movie. It is a long 140 minutes, and I really I'm not really too interested in the like aesthetic of Matt Reeves's Apes movies. I think they find themselves too self-serious, and I think they kind of think they're more whatever than they are.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about that while watching War, and I made a connection in my head, because you and me, Owen, we talked about these movies like off mic a bit, and I was just thinking about how we're gonna have Haka on to talk about these movies because he loves these movies. And this was before me and you knew that we weren't gonna like these movies very much. But I was thinking about it, and I'm like, oh, you know what? It's giving me like the Nolan Batman kind of vibe, where I was like, oh, it's taking a silly thing and making it super serious.
And again, this was if this episode kind of feels like a trap. We invited Alex on. We invited Alex on before we watched these movies, so. We didn't say, oh, let's.
But also, you're gonna have positive things to say about Kingdom, so don't feel too bad.
Yeah, okay, we'll get there. But yeah, so I mean, I think so. Again, to like go on to Dawn, I think Dawn is my favorite of the trilogy, for sure. I think a part of it, just the kind of conceptually, I don't think it's interesting. The take on the apes, as like a remake, I don't think that's like interesting conceptually. I think there's some cool tech stuff. But outside of that, it's not interesting. But I think Matt Reeves' direction is the best in 2. And I think what's the guy who was in Oppenheimer? I'm blanking on his name.
That's
crazy.
The
main guy, Jason Clarke.
Yes.
Yeah. Jason Clarke, I think, is cool. But
so thrown off by him playing a good guy. By the way, he like never does that.
He's really good in Dawn. Jason Clarke.
No, he is really good. But like, he's almost
Dawn.
Never a nice guy in movies.
Oh,
like,
speaking of Jason Clarke being really good in Dawn, Woody Harrelson is fucking also terrible.
Awful.
In War.
Alex was about to get excited.
I'm embarrassed.
Sorry.
I'm getting massacred. I think Woody Harrelson's great. I was about to say, I think Gary Oldman is really good in Dawn as well.
Oh, I
yeah,
forgot
yeah.
about. Yeah, no, he's
Yeah,
he's
he,
good.
he's really good at
I think it has the best performances. I think that one has the best performances of the three by a significant margin.
Of the human characters, for sure.
Yeah, well, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Well, also,
Actually, and the monkeys, 'cause
also like
Koba-
Koba's in it.
yeah,
Yeah, like
Koba's
it's
in
like
it.
that's probably just the best one all
Yeah, it's
around
the best one.
performance wise.
And then I mean, I could talk about the older ones. I like the. There's something I like brought up on Twitter, and people were like, "This is a bad take." But basically, there's like a level of like it's like camp, but it's like silliness and goofiness that a movie about apes naturally is going to have, right? And the moment that you make them talk, it gets more goofy, right? Because that's not like it's more fantasy and sci-fi, and because it's just not a real thing, right? Um, and I think with like 60s, 70s like sci-fi art and like the art designs are really great in those. And I think also when they're in like those suits, it's all the goofy level is already crazy. So I think there's just like there's already some like interesting stuff there. And I think when you make CGI apes, like realistic photorealistic CGI apes, you lose the goofiness. But I think like that doesn't mean the movie like is totally lost in terms of like its silly nature. I just think you have like the rest of the movie has to add to that, you know. And I think Kingdom has a little more of that, where it's like more bright and funny. And but I think like when you have photorealistic apes and everything else is like super serious, there's not a lot for me to be like interested on that level. Because I don't know. So I really like all the old ones. I think even Battle is pretty good. People hate that fucking movie, and I really don't know why. I think I love the kind of their like little school and all that stuff. I like Beneath is cool. That's the second one. There was like this whole spoilers for a movie that came out in 1970, but they like there's like this reveal where like these like there's humans and they're underground, and then they like mask off Mission Impossible and they're like aliens. It's bizarre, but I think like that stuff's just cool. Like I'd rather like have a really weird like kind of mixed bag 70s movie with like crazy art direction and like silly apes than like a super self-serious movie from the 2010s. Conquest is like this like 1984 like dystopian like Blade Runner thing going on. Really cool movie. And then Escape is great. I think Escape, if you're gonna watch two of them from the old ones, I think like the OG and I think Escape, because Escape you have the what's tough because that's the third one, but you don't really need to watch the second one to get the third one. Basically, the two main apes like escape from the planet of the apes, and they go back to 1970, and it's like a reverse of the original movie, where instead of you have a man in the ape world, you have two apes in the man world, like the normal world. And it's really cool. I like that one movie a lot. It one's really great. And then the original one, I think, is just kind of a classic. Very well directed. I think that the twist ending is one that you kind of it's hard to not know it because it's so iconic, but it's still like just so awesome. I think a lot of it has to do with like the direction of that scene as well as like Heston's performance. It's just really powerful ending there.
You could make an argument that it's the greatest ending to any movie.
It's like really great, and I think a part of the reason why Beneath is not as good is because like a lot of there's like, issues with that, but like it doesn't follow that. Like the ending is so strong that like the Beneath doesn't really take it anywhere interesting. Like, but yeah, that first one's really great. Franklin J. Schaffner, a really well directed movie. Charlton Heston is kind of incredible. Doug already said that, but really again wonderful art designs in these old ones. But I think with like this one seems like the biggest budget in terms of like the set designs are really fantastic.
Yeah, it is the biggest budget. The budget gets smaller as every sequel.
Yeah, you can kind of tell that like when watching the movies. But I think they're the older ones. The sequels are good. I think they're worth checking out. I know some Real Talk guys have been like not fans of the older ones. I might be a little more lenient on like old sci-fi because I just like old B movies and stuff like that. That's like kind of my jam. So all these like old ape movies, like with the guys in the suits, are really fun for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, let's talk about
Let's talk about a
Kingdom.
movie we all like. We all like this movie.
So newest addition to this modern saga of Apes movies takes place generations in the future from the Caesar movies. Our main character is Noah, and at this point in the timeline, apes are kind of the like they're pretty much taking like humans have been put to the side and don't really exist a whole lot in this world. Apes are like the dominant species now.
But we're still
And
not like, because we're still like, because like in the old Planet of the Apes movies, the apes are like super like intelligent and have like human level
right,
society, like
these
modern
ones are
human level
not
societies.
all like
It's not
Yeah.
there yet, but it's
yeah,
definitely
that's like
much
what it's
better, 'cause-
building towards.
because
That's what
in
it's setting
with
up.
the Caesar ones, they're doing a lot of sign language and there's not much dialogue between the characters. We have like fully fledged like conversations, and they're much closer to a human or the versions that we see in the older movies than we did in like the Reeves movies.
Yeah. So I guess like to start, I would ask, because for me, this is like somewhat in line with these previous three movies, but I think for Doug and Owen, obviously it's like you guys both liked this one much more than the previous three, and I don't know where Alex stands, so I'd be curious to hear all your thoughts about how I guess you would compare this new one to the others.
It
and
feels like
where it
it feels
stands.
like some sort of a marriage. It feels like there's things that come from both. I think.
It
Yeah,
feels
I'm
like a
interested.
legacy sequel for a movie that came out like 5 years ago.
Yeah,
you know?
sort of.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
I wanted to ask where you guys, all three of you, would rank Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes among just the Reeves plus Rise trilogy. Would you rank it? Do you guys all unanimously think it's better than the other?
They all think they think it's better. I think I like Dawn a little bit more, but I definitely like this more than Rise and War for me.
Yeah, because this
it's
so
close to Dawn.
easily is the worst of the four. Like
Interesting.
so easily. Like I mean by like a wide margin.
Do you
I
like
know
this movie?
yeah.
Do you like this movie?
I like it, but like at the bare
Okay.
minimum of liking it. If that makes sense.
Okay.
I've seen
Interesting.
that response from a lot of people.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of
That's
people
really
kind
interesting
fall
to
like
me.
middle of the
Yeah.
road on this movie.
God,
It's
like,
also, I don't like this way more than Dawn. I gave it
Right.
the same star rating as Dawn. If
Right.
that, yeah.
like it's like it's got good stuff, but you know, I didn't say this on our podcast, and the more the movie lingers with me, the more I like it. Like the more I think about it, and I think like this is a really good like portrayal. Like I think by far the most profound thing about Kingdom. Not that there's anything profound about monkeys with their own civilization, but
There's some
I love how you portray like religious deity characters, right? Like when a story is passed down and passed down and passed down, like what Caesar has become to, you know, the apes
right.
now or in that movie is really, really interesting, right? That's a really interesting take on, you know, not to name specific religions, but just modern day religions. It's really interesting. Like you may be taking it completely differently than how you're supposed to be taking it, and nobody even bats an eye, right?
Yeah.
I think that's really
I think
really interesting stuff.
I think it's the biggest advantage of this movie. Like for me personally, as somebody who like wasn't in love with this movie, and especially in comparing it to the previous three movies, like I said that the first and third one are like dumb or whatever, which is like dumbing it down. But like I don't think that they have much to say, whereas like I think Dawn kind of does. And then this movie I think is like the closest to that, which is why I think it's probably my second favorite, because that idea, like that religious aspect, and also like just how information is passed, like you learn a lot about this, like with like philosophy, for example. Like if you read a lot of like philosophy and are into that, like you see how much ideas from the past get mistranslated and misused by like the politicians and leaders of today. And like I thought, you know, I don't know that this movie is the most effective at talking about that particular idea, but I think the fact that it presents it is infinitely more interesting than anything that like Rise or War presented for me, which is why I could actually like see this one the whole way through. I wasn't like in love with it because I think this, along with the previous three movies, this is just a me thing. I don't know if this is like an everybody thing. Every single one of these four movies, like during the second act, I just clock out. I'm like, because the movies go from like the beginning and end, they're usually like pretty exciting, pretty entertaining. I think when these movies like really dig into like the second act where it's like character heavy and writing heavy, it exposes that they're not written that well. And then I just get kind of bored. Like I don't really care for much of the middle of these movies. And then they kind of like win me back when I get to the end. I'm like, okay, now we're, but this one I was like, it's not as bad because of those ideas, like because it's like at least giving me a little bit of something to think about.
So I just want to talk about my like other pros, and then I'm gonna give my my thought walking out of the theater, because like I said, I haven't given this at all on any social media or anything. But another positive for me is I think it's the second funniest of the four. I think War is funnier. I think War doesn't get enough love for how funny it is. I think Steve Zahn as Bad Ape is genuinely hilarious. And,
Oh yeah.
I don't know, provides some much needed comedy in a very bleak and to you guys boring movie.
Well, I didn't say that.
It's the
I'll
same
say it.
thing. It's the same thing with this one. I think that this movie is a slow movie, and like the Raka Noah May comedy in the middle of it, like actually shines, right? I was at the premiere. It's the only time I've seen it. I have not rewatched this movie, and the theater, obviously, you're at the premiere, so everybody's more positive about the movie than they would be in a regular theater. But my theater, like, there were some people like cackling, like loudly laughing at some of those jokes, and I thought it was pretty well done. And then obviously, I think the movie looks really good. I don't think it looks as good as the two Reeves ones, but I do think it looks better than Rise. Rise has some questionable CGI shots at some points, but like at the end of the day, this was my thought. And like I said, the more that I think about this movie, the more I like it. But walking out of the theater, my initial thought was I kept waiting for this movie to begin. And then at some point, I was just waiting for it to end. I kind of think like my out of theater experience, like when I see people on Twitter saying they walked out of this movie, and I see people on Twitter saying that this is like the most boring movie they've seen, like I understand what they mean completely. This movie,
Yeah, I mean, I know a few people who
just kind of
were really bored during that.
Yeah, like obviously I'm not gonna walk out. I'm at the fucking premiere, and then obviously, like if I wasn't at the premiere, like if I saw this in theaters, I wouldn't have walked out. This franchise means so much to me. But like, we just talked about, and we talked about this the last time I was on this show, where like I am a different moviegoer than the three of you. Like completely different. The way I consume this medium is completely different than the way you consume this medium. And it's like for those of us that like the previous trilogy is like genius. Like the Dark Knight and Reeves Planet of the Apes trilogy lovers of the world, like me, like plenty, like literally millions of people.
Yeah, lots of people.
I love the Dark Knight.
Like the 5 million people that hated Doug's tweet.
There's so many people that like just think that the Dark Knight trilogy is the best trilogy ever. There's millions of people that feel that way, and I might be one of those people. I love Batman Begins. I love the Dark Knight. I like Dark Knight Rises a lot. And then obviously this previous trilogy might be my favorite trilogy of all time. So like when we talk about these movies, like the way I consume the previous trilogy, this movie, and this is obvious to me as to why you guys liked it so much, it's a completely different movie-going experience. It doesn't, there's the joke about The Godfather that insists upon itself. The previous trilogy kind of insists upon itself. Like, it's like, we are smarter than you, even though obviously you guys are like, well, it's not very smart. I think those movies are smart, and I think they're really well done. And this movie, I was like, God, this movie isn't very smart. I just like, and I kept, the last thing I want to say, and then I'll leave it to you guys, but The last thing I want to say about this movie is I kept thinking it was going to go places that I thought were like really interesting. I don't want to go into too much spoilers, but there's a scene in the movie where Noah, the main character, feels betrayed by the human character May, and he goes up into her room and he's like, "No more lies. Like, I'm dealing with this shit, right?" And I was like, "Oh, they're going with like a Godfather route. Like, this guy is Michael Corleone. This guy, he was a nice guy that like kind of figuring out life, and then something bad happened to him, and to his father specifically, and then he goes on this revenge journey, and then he learns to love this other character who he looks like he could potentially have a relationship with, and then that person is gone from his life, and then he comes back and he's like, "I'm tired of your fucking shit. I'm gonna be the mob boss now. I'm taking shit." So I was like, "Oh, like, are we gonna get like, is he gonna be a bad guy? Like, this would be awesome. Like, does he take over the prophecy man and be the bad guy?" No, they don't do that. They don't do that. Which could have been really interesting to me, at least. And they don't do that. And I feel like there were a million things in this movie where I was like, "Oh, like that's real." Like, I kind of think overall, them taking the name of Caesar, like I was like, "Oh, for Caesar," like, "Oh, that's really interesting." And then, like I said, it is interesting how they misconstrue the apes together strong and this and that. And then like all the slaves have the face paint that Caesar has in Dawn and everything like that. And they're using the window symbol and everything. But at the end of the day, like, it just,
I felt similar about a part towards the end that we can talk about later. But
I'm interested. What you're talking about, I think there some of these problems I think might have to do with the fact that they have 5 more movies planned,
right? Yeah,
which I think is not a good way to go about it. I don't think like I think some of it might have to do with like they're building up these characters for future movies where they don't like fully get a lot. But yeah, a lot of this movie for me was, I have like preference issues with the other films, the other 3 films, and this is just more my style. I think it's just more like kind of light, and I think I like I said earlier, I think my review starts like something like the moment you make these apes talk, it gets more fantasy because apes just can't talk. So I think like it reminds me of like a George Lucas movie where like you have these like weird aliens that are talking, and it reminds me of like Avatar: The Way of Water. We have like these fully CG characters. We'll get to that more.
Yeah,
but it reminds me of Avatar in the way that you have like these fully CG mocap characters talking. And I think that's like really fantasy sci-fi, the things that I'm interested in. It's really bright, it's the brightest of the 4. I like the colors there. I think the kind of the beach setting with the water is more reminiscent of like the first movie. That I like that bit. I think Kevin Durant as Proximus is really fun.
Which we're going to talk about.
He's is really great in this movie. I think like the whole like What a Wonderful Day is like really fun.
What a wonderful day! It's amazing. That's
it's
rocks.
So good. He has like it's very great presence. I almost think maybe you could say he's a pro, but a con is like we don't get as much as you want from him.
Yeah, that's how I felt. I was like,
I think he's really great. Maybe you have more of him. I'd really like it. I know he like spoilers. He like fucking falls at the end and he presumably dies. I hope that somehow.
No, really was a spoiler. He spoiled that in the movie.
Oh, he said spoiler.
I said spoiler. You did. We're 53 minutes in this. It's about time he starts whipping things out. Yeah. No, I think. I hope that they like somehow like he survives, because I think he's just such a good performance, and I don't think anyone would be mad that he doesn't.
I have a theory about this. I hate using the word theory, but I think I'm going to have to when we talk about these.
All right, let's drop it. Let's get a theory for TikTok.
Well, yeah, what's the thing? Because I need to get, dude. Okay, so these new Planet of the Apes movies have always had kind of a shared DNA with Avatar, because the writers for Rise have also been the producers for all of these movies now. They are also that couple, they are in the writing room and like the producing team for the Avatar sequels, as well as Josh Friedman, who is the only writer for this movie. he has a writing credit for Avatar: The Way of Water, and he is also going to be the co-writer with primary co-writer with James Cameron for Avatar 4. And is also in the writing room for all these Avatar movies. So it's like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes has two Avatar producers and an Avatar writer on it. And this shit is actually like they're not even, it's like the most obvious riff on Avatar ever. And I love that so much, because guess what, I like that movie.
Yeah.
But it's like, I mean, it's like there's so many things you could point out where it's like, oh, that's like a Way of Water idea,
Yeah.
or it's
I mean, the ending especially.
well, the
Yeah,
ending,
the
but
entire,
even like even at the
flood
beginning,
sequence.
like the
That's true.
like the kid, it's about kids, right?
Right.
It's about
Even them like going
bonding.
for the eggs and stuff. Like
Yeah,
that's like
yeah. It's about bonding with birds as opposed to bonding with like whales. You know,
Right.
it's about, even in the second act, there was some stuff. It's so good, but like, yeah, the ending is literally just like the same fucking set piece from The Way
as
of
like
Water.
being stuck in the boat. Yeah.
Yeah, and that rocks.
Yeah, I like that.
I think
I
it's
mean, I was
amazing.
watching it, and that's all I was thinking about while I was watching it. But that's what I mean. Like that's at the end, and then all the stuff in the middle. I was just like, you even just did it, Doug. You forgot what happened in the middle. That's what I mean.
Well,
Like,
in the middle, they like
Well,
go to
I
they slow
like-
it down a little bit.
I like this sequence. I don't know if you count this, like, I guess it's this with the middle, but the
Yeah.
entire stuff with the zebras and like the whole
Right.
like set piece on that bridge where the guy dies. I like that part a lot. That whole
Yeah,
where they
I
like
thought that was
chasing
good.
May through the grass. That whole sequence where she stands up and there's the bad guys on one side and there's Noah on the other side, and there's like this pause moment, and then they both are like they're all running to try to get her. I think that's
Big
a good
Trevor moment.
kind of
That,
set piece action moment there.
that orangutan character's name is Raka.
He's-
He's so
He's
good.
great.
He's so good.
great. Yeah,
He
I
when
like
he
him.
dies, like that's such an I think that's a very emotional moment that works. I think he's so good, and it's like you like him and you want him to. He's like one of
And,
the best
well,
parts of the early.
I
There's
love what
a-
Alex was saying earlier about how he likes how like the Caesar's kind of like more of like a Jesus or like Muhammad, like this Messiah character. And I like how Raka, he is, this very devout Caesar follower, and he's explaining to Noah how he it's like, no, like we like humans because humans are so important to Caesar. And even Rock is like, for some reason.
Yeah, like he doesn't. He can't
Yeah.
read the books. He can't read the books, but he knows that they're important. So therefore, like he holds.
No, it's
like, he
so
gives them
good. It's
value.
like it's the best
Which
part of
is-
the movie, because like
Yeah.
we call all humans, they're novas. I
Yeah.
don't know why. It's the last movie, but it's like it's so.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's like really interesting.
Yeah.
Real quick to run back, because I think that this is an interesting thing to say. We were just talking about Kevin Durant and his great performance as Proximus.
Yeah.
I do want to say that like that's a big knock I have on this movie. Is you don't meet him until you're 90 minutes, 95, 100 minutes into this 2.5 hour movie. And I always say, obviously, I know that maybe Owen may have a different opinion on this than me, but I think Attack of the Clones is one of the worst Star Wars movies. It's not the worst, but it is really bad. It's got some really bad stuff in it. And one of like the main things I always bring up about Attack of the Clones being bad is it's so unevenly paced. You do not meet the main villain for 90 minutes. And that's what happens in this movie. It's exactly what happens.
Even if he just like showed up for the hunting scenes where like he was just on a horse, but he made like the other monkeys do but like you could feel like how threatening he is, I would be like, that's still at least like bringing.
Are you referring to Django or Dooku?
I'm referring to Dooku.
Yeah. See, like he's just kind of irrelevant. Like he's a pawn. Like I don't really care about him. It's like all about, Anakin and Padme being like horny.
I don't like sand.
Yeah, no, that shit rocks.
That's irritating. I wish I could just wish away my feelings. Okay,
Yeah,
Owen is out here.
movie. Best Star
Owen
Wars
is
movie.
here. Owen is here talking shit. Owen is here talking shit about the performance we get from James Franco and John Lithgow and Woody Harrelson in these movies.
Yeah.
Fuck out of here. Hayden Christensen is terrible.
Oh, he's so good. No,
But so it's like a writing decision to not include Proximus because it's this idea of like Proximus was like shown earlier, right? You'd have to restructure the whole film to get more
Of
Proximus,
course.
because the whole idea is like, oh, he's not going to leave camp, and it's also like he's looming large over all of these fucking people he's stealing,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I
But
get that. I'm just saying, like, the
He's so
most and
good. He's so
the most
good.
captivating scenes in the whole movie are every single scene that he's in. Like by far, other, minus like 2 scenes that I really liked.
no, I
But
like the
like,
stuff with Raka and Noah just chit
Yeah,
no, I
no,
like
I
that
chatting.
think
too.
I
I mean,
think
I like them
what is it,
as
Owen
well.
Teague's performances? No, I think he's really great.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought everybody was good in the movie. Like, I like every character individually, but I think when he shows up and like every scene that he's in, I'm like, this guy fucking rock. Like, that's like what I remembered when I left the theater was like him.
Yeah. No, I
Like
don't
by
think
a
it's
significant
again. I
margin.
don't think it's like a masterpiece or anything. I think it's pretty solid. I think just in terms of like uh these like fully CGI blockbusters, I think this is definitely not one to count out. I think it's like really competent, and
Yeah.
I think
There's
the big thing for me was like Wes Ball
That's
being
what I
like,
was just about to bring
yeah,
up. I was gonna
I
ask
think
you about him.
Wes
Wes
Baller.
Ball is a guy to look out for. I think I maybe saw the first Maze Runner movie like in like middle school or some bullshit. And I can't speak on those. And then that's pretty much it for Wes Ball. He's young. He's a young director. You
Yeah,
know,
he's like 43. Yeah.
uh, so he's got a lot of movie making left in him. I think
Mhm.
this was a really for me. It was like I'm not crazy about these new Ape movies. I want to see Wes Ball as a director here, and I think he has a handle on the tech, and he is able to bring like a competent blockbuster that has some personality to it and some passion behind it in a way that's hard to do in the modern system. Where I think that he can deliver some good movies. So that was the big thing for me is like I wasn't really looking. I liked the movie more than I thought I would, and I was kind of more assessing him rather than being like this is going to be like my new favorite movie ever or anything like that.
So
I like Wes Ball.
since we know there's more movies coming, I mean, if he's doing the Zelda movie, would he be coming back for the next Apes movie, or are we assuming that would be a new director?
There's big gaps between these Apes movies, so we're
Right.
probably not going to get one for like 5 years. So
Yeah, I would assume he comes back. I think there it's funny cuz like he's young and like you'd want him to do something else maybe, but I also think like it's like what Barry Jenkins was saying about Mufasa, like it's good education to work on these big tech movies.
Right.
You know, you learn so much about this tech, and even with just doing a whole movie like there's only so much you can learn in a period of time. So continuing to work on these movies, he's only going to get better with the tech, and just continuing to make stuff, you get better. So I mean, I think doing the Zelda movie, doing the just more Ape movies will all just lead him up to doing like Avatar 6.
yes.
And then
Yes.
so that's like a projection in like the next 10 or 15 years. But
Yeah.
I think he's good. I think he's good. I don't think this movie is like a masterpiece or anything. It's not like one of my favorite movies of the year. It's but I think it's really solid, and I think it just does stuff that I'm more interested in, and more like stuff that is leaning towards my preferences in terms of like a fantasy sci-fi movie. So yeah, it kind of just works more for me than some of the other ones. But again, it's not like my favorite thing ever or anything like that.
Right. Before we move on, I did want to talk a little bit about what I hinted at before and kind of like I think one of my other issues when like what Owen said, where it's like it's pretty clear that they made it like like the intention here is that they're going to make a lot more of these. When I got to the end, I was just like, do I like what they're setting up between apes and humans for the future of the movies? I was just like, is this really going to like give us anything new than what we just saw in the previous trilogy that came out over the past decade? Like, do I really need to like watch the same conflicts from a trilogy that just happened 10 years ago? Like, you know what I mean? I was like, because it's like essentially what they're setting up is the trilogy that just happened, but in reverse, where like this movie is war, and now the humans are going to become like now the humans got their tech, so they're going to be more advanced. So then there's going to be like the dawn, and then like we would just end up back to where the human tech like
I
gets
think
to the point where like, you know what I mean? Like I'm sure they could do a different. I'm sure they have a different idea.
we're leading up to a remake of the first movie.
Right. But like,
yeah, I'm really interested how like
to a remake of like Planet of the Apes 1960.
yeah. Okay.
I'm interested in like how, because all the people like the tech underground is interesting, but like it's interesting because there's some knowledge that these characters have that like the apes in 68 don't have. Like they're just there has to be like some level of like lost knowledge, and there's like the generations are going to be passed where like characters are going to kind of shift into a different way of living. And there's also, I think that the humans can still exist because in the older version there's kind of like, this is where we live and we don't go farther than that, right? So like there's a whole planet where like humans can exist and all that stuff. So there's this kind of like way of living, and there's different kind of relations that they have with characters.
I think
but I
it
don't
could
know.
be interesting. Like,
I think 5 movies is kind of crazy for like the level of talent we have, and there's kind of like the where the franchise is. But I don't know.
Well, I mean, we have like, you know, like Wes Ball, obviously, who we're like kind of like bullish on as a director, and then we have like, you know, like people that are working on Avatar are working on this fucking movie. It's like, there's a lot of resources for this franchise.
I do one final quick little question for Alex, because I saw this right before we started recording the podcast, and I don't know if this is true, but since you said you were at the premiere, I imagine you stayed till the very end. Is there a post-credits scene, not post-credits scene, but a post-credits audio clip at the end of this movie where Raka is still alive potentially?
Well, I've got some news for you. I did not stay.
Oh wow!
I kind of.
So I looked it up. Okay, I looked it up online then, and I saw that there was like an audio
I've
clip
heard
at the end.
that what you just said to me. I've heard that from a million people.
Okay,
I did not know that.
I did not know that either. But that's I was going to bring this up.
I didn't say, but somebody commented on my TikTok and was like, "It's so obvious you didn't stay till the end credits," and I was like, "My fucking bad, dude." Like, sorry, I didn't know it was a fucking requirement.
I think that Raka and the Caesar, Proximus, I think they're both alive still. That's what I'm going to say. I think that, like,
I hope so.
In sequels, they're
I
both
think those
come
are
back.
2 really great characters. I do hope so.
I mean, if they're making 6 movies, it would make sense for them to still be alive.
I think that Proximus, I think it's, listen, guy, this guy fucking wrote Avatar. I think he's going to do the Avatar thing. He's going to come back in the next movie. He's going to have an arc where he becomes like a fucking redeems himself. It's gonna...
Right. Yeah. That'll be interesting. Okay. We can move on to a quick little bit of news. Obviously the usual, like, comment, subscribe, rate us on Spotify and Apple Pods, and of course follow Alex and the Escape Pod. Those links are going to be in the episode description and whatnot. I want to say biggest piece of news, and also funny because we kind of hinted at this franchise, I guess, earlier in the episode. New live action Lord of the Rings movie is in the works at Warner Bros. With Peter Jackson producing. Working title is The Hunt for Gollum, and Andy Serkis will return as Gollum and direct the film.
What are we doing?
Oh, I didn't know he was directing.
Yeah, he's directing it.
Yeah, he's directing.
Yeah.
The director of Venom 2.
Yeah, Venom Let There Be Carnage. Yeah, not the best. Love
what are we doing? That's so bizarre.
It feels Solo. It feels Ron Howard Solo to me. It feels Disney Star Wars. It feels gross. I'm not a fan. It's really weird. They've had this. They have this property, this Lord of the Rings property, and the modern thing is, hey, we have this thing. It's really big. How do we juice something out of it? And it's just I don't know. The Hunt for Gollum, like, really.
Yeah. Did you see that? Also, I saw something today where, like, apparently there was a fan film made by somebody with the same title, and they copyrighted it and took
they
it
fixed
down.
that. They fixed that.
Okay.
It was some.
Okay.
I mean, it could have just been like the backlash.
It was probably like an automatic thing.
I mean, because that's pretty fucked up to just take this movie with, like, I don't know how it was like 15 million views or something.
But it's not there for years. The Hunt. I don't know. It's like, I'm thinking of like when Jim Cameron goes like Alien and then like the S, the
That
money S.
and then it's a dollar sign.
But the hunt for Gollum, I don't see being like that big. Like,
Yeah,
it's
I
like
think doing a Gollum movie right after that Gollum game
this
came
big
out that
game
everybody
that was
hated
like
is really
horrible.
yeah.
Well, it's
Um,
like I don't know. I think Gollum's a cool character. I just it reminds me again. Another thing it reminds me of is like those like old like Disney like spin-off sequels to, like animated movies where like they would just be like lesser quality and like straight to DVD.
oh yeah, like Lion King 1.5.
Yeah, it's
Like-
giving straight to
Yeah.
DVD sequel. It's really weird. And it's like Lord of the Rings is so big. Like the world is so big, it's so massive. You could just
Well,
make
yeah,
like a like there's
This year, there's a Lord of the Rings movie coming out. That's the Battle of
The animated,
Rohirrim
yeah.
or whatever. Yeah. That's a different
I
thing.
don't know.
Like,
It's the same thing with like the Star Wars stuff. It's like there's such a big universe here. It's kind of like if you're really going to milk it, like there's so many options, and the Hunt for Gollum seems like the like weirdest, like laziest, way to do that, I guess.
Alex, where are you at with the Hunt for Gollum?
Well, notoriously, I've only seen Fellowship.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, so not a
So,
big.
You haven't
ticket
really
for
met
you.
Gollum.
This
Not
franchise, this
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
you
franchise,
don't
don't even
jack.
know about it.
Yeah.
for lack of a better way of saying it, this franchise doesn't mean shit to me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if they're diluting the fucking brand. Like, I couldn't care.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm happy that Andy Serkis is getting paid. This is my
Yeah.
guy. He's gonna
Right.
get a big
No,
old
it's
check
interesting
from
that
this
you
movie.
the Andy Serkis.
Yeah, it's interesting that you like him this much, and
because that's like
haven't-
his big thing.
I
that's
know.
like-
I
Well,
know.
but
you
Alex's
started
big
to
thing
do
is
that.
Caesar.
Yeah,
So,
so
Right.
Yeah, no,
Caesar,
I know.
and then again, like he's done a lot of great work. I really like him in The Prestige, although he is pretty small in that movie. And then, but like a big thing for me
5'7".
is both of his Star Wars roles are incredible. Like I love Snoke.
Andor.
I'm sorry,
Snoke.
I
Oh,
love Snoke.
I was like, I know
I
he's an
love
Andor.
Snoke,
Okay.
and then Andor is amazing. Like he's
That's his best performance.
legitimately.
Is Andor,
He's
yeah.
the best performance in Andor, and I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
Andor is the best Star Wars project since 1980. So,
Yeah,
like,
no, yeah, I agree. We're on the same page right now, Alex.
yeah. So,
Oh, Andor's the
Andy-
one you like, Doug? I thought. Oh, interesting. How many shows
What?
do they have?
they're
A
get-
lot.
they're gonna-
Yeah,
Andor's the
I
good
don't.
one,
I
though.
get the titles mixed up because I know Doug said like one of them is good and he doesn't like any of the other shows, right?
That's a fair take. That's a fair
Yeah.
take. Well,
So Andor's the good
we
one.
filmed.
Yeah.
This is a bit
Okay.
of news. I doubt you're bringing it up, but we filmed our podcast that comes out this Monday. We filmed it yesterday, and we did like a little news segment. And George Lucas said that Obi-Wan Kenobi is he loved it and is one of his
saw that.
favorite Star Wars
He did
projects
not
of,
watch that
of
shit.
recent years. And I
He's
literally,
lying.
I literally said, reading that news, I literally said, this only helps my case that George Lucas is a fucking idiot. It's a
No,
terrible.
I mean, because that
opinion.
show fucking sucks dick, dude.
It's so bad.
I try to get so excited for the Obi-Wan show. And I like sat down and I was watching it and I was like, it's crazy how they fucked this up this bad. Like, what the fuck happened? Like,
It should have been like easily in upper echelon, like one of the best Star Wars projects
they
ever.
brought Ewan McGregor back for this?
Like Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen. Like, say what you want about him.
Yeah.
I think he's a terrible actor, but at least he's in the fucking suit.
But like they brought them back for this. It should be a huge event, and then they shit the bed so
It's
bad.
like they might as well make a movie.
Yeah, well, it was supposed. It's a whole thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was.
I know.
And it doesn't matter, movie or show. Like this should have been like
No,
like
I
you
know.
said, like a fucking event.
Yeah.
And you fucking, and I know that this doesn't matter. I doubt this matters to the rest of you guys. That show breaks canon in like 15 different ways. That like at me, Star Wars nerd, Star Wars my favorite franchise of all time. I literally have a podcast being a fucking nerd. Canon is something that fucking matters to me. And like there's, I mean, they break canon. Like I could tell you off rip like 2 ways that you cannot break canon. Like you just can't do that. Like him not killing Vader at the end, him beating Vader is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. But then him beating Vader at the end and not killing Vader, from now on, the millions of lives that Vader is responsible for taking is now on Obi-Wan for the rest of canon. That's not Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan's not Spider-Man. He's not Daredevil. He's not Batman. He doesn't not kill people. He kills people all the time. He kills people all the time. It's ridiculous.
Bro, he thought that he killed Anakin in the Revenge of the
Exactly. Like I have no problem with him not killing him in Revenge of the Sith because there's no reasonable explanation that guy could have survived.
Yeah, he thought that he died. Yeah, exactly. Like,
but then, like, okay, you've seen him survive once. You cannot walk away from that fight. Like,
I feel like that it kind of breaks. This is kind of my take, and I don't bring this up either because canon. It doesn't usually matter when we talk about like whether something's good or not, but it's something that I find annoying about the Obi-Wan show is that it breaks like the spirit of the series, where it's like the idea is that Obi-Wan goes into after the prequels, Obi-Wan like goes into hiding and becomes like a hermit for like however like 30 years or however until he comes back out and he's like, oh yes, Luke, I've been watching over you in secret and fucking doing like whatever, being a hermit. And then this Obi-Wan show is like, oh, that didn't happen actually. Obi-Wan goes on this crazy adventure to save Princess Leia, and it's like, what the fuck? What the fuck?
Which breaks the canon because they're not supposed to have met. Her transmission to him is, years ago you served my father in the Clone Wars. Like, it's not like this girl is 2. She's fucking 11. Like, she would have remembered that.
Yeah, it's
Leia, God bless the fucking actress. That is the most annoyingly written character I've ever seen in my life. I know a lot of people shit on Reva. I think Reva's bad in that show, but holy shit, young Leia is terrible. Like, unwatchable levels of shit. Like, and then the volume. That's the worst the volume's ever been. I know you guys are like anti-corporate machine guys. The volume is the worst corporate machine ever. Like, I hate the volume.
It's
so
funny.
much.
So like the volume, it was like used to solve a problem for the Mandalorian, and then now it's like, oh, they solved this problem really well. They just shoehorned it. Yeah, I mean that show just looks fucking bad. It looks so ugly.
And the run around the chase scene where the chase scene. Andrew said on the podcast yesterday that it's the worst scene in any big franchise he likes. Is the Leia running away from the assassins scene where they get blocked by a branch. But that's what happens when you're filming in a room that's 30 feet wide, when you're supposed to be in an expansive forest. Like, that's what you have to do. Like, just there's so much garbage in that show. Golly. I'm so glad that people are coming around on that, because when it was coming out, people were like, God, this is great. Like,
yeah, no, people liked it when it came out, and I felt like that was the moment when it really, because I was like holding on to Star Wars fandom, like being like liking the new stuff. But when the Obi-Wan show came out and I was the only person that was shitting on it, I was like, oh, it's lost, it's over for me. I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
I'm so not in touch with like Star Wars stuff on the internet. I had no idea how people feel about any of the shows.
Mm-hmm. There's 3 different groups, and they're always at war, and nobody hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans, but also nobody loves Star Wars more than Star Wars fans. Like, some Star Wars fans are so blinded. I assume none of that's something I watched this week. Tales of the Empire. Tales of the Empire fucking sucks. Tales of the Empire fucking
I don't even know what that is.
Is that a cartoon?
It's an animated one, right?
It's an animated. It's a shame, because I think Tales of the Jedi is one of the best things Star Wars has ever done.
I watched that. That was good.
For me,
is that newer?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you guys the history if you guys will give me 2 minutes. I'll be real quick.
Take your time.
Okay, so
I love Star Wars.
Yeah, so this is the dealio.
Let's turn this back half into Star Wars.
So there's what I call the big 4, which I think are the 4 perfect Star Wars projects. Okay, it's the original Star Wars 1977. If you want to call it New Hope, that's fine. But I'm not talking about the special edition change. I'm talking about the movie that does not include the Jabba the Hutt scene, not any of the unnecessary, terrible CGI. The original 1977 cut of Star Wars. That's the best Star Wars that's the best movie in the franchise, probably my favorite movie of all time. Then we have Empire Strikes Back, which is most people's favorite Star Wars movie. Amazing masterpiece. Erwin Kershner, may he rest in peace. He did a hell of a job directing that movie. That movie's amazing.
He directed the fuck out of that movie.
Third place is If You Let Me Count It. If you don't let me count it, that's fine. Then I'll call it the big 3. But third place, I have The Siege of Mandalore, the last 4 episodes of Clone Wars. The reason I count it is because it has a different intro than the rest of Clone Wars. It's got a red logo instead of the classic yellow. It only has 1 intro, and it does play like a 2-hour movie. It is incredible. You watch Ahsoka and Captain Rex, characters that you've watched for 8 seasons at that point, or 7 seasons at that point. You watch them experience the events of Revenge of the Sith. The opening scene, you see the reaction that Anakin and Obi-Wan have to Palpatine being kidnapped. You see them going, we're going to be there in an hour. Like, everything. You watch Obi-Wan tell Ahsoka that Anakin killed Count Dooku. Like, it's just really, really interesting, meaty stuff. You see Darth Maul, who the Clone Wars made into a great character. So yeah, last 4 episodes of Clone Wars are amazing. And then Andor. That's the big 4 for me. And then 5th place out of all of Star Wars, I think Tales of the Jedi. I think Tales of the Jedi isn't perfect. It's not as perfect as the Big Four, but I think Tales of the Jedi is the 5th best thing Star Wars has ever made.
You like Tales of the Jedi more than I mean, there was the Ryan Johnson movie called
Last Jedi? Yeah,
Last Jedi.
And I
That's
love
crazy.
Last Jedi. I'm a big Last Jedi defender, but I think Tales of the Jedi is better. Tales of the Jedi is a 6-episode, like they're shorts. They're like 10 to 15 minutes. And it just gives context to characters that like we didn't have that context prior. And what it is it's 2 Jedi. It's Ahsoka, which is interesting. We get some really interesting Ahsoka stuff. We see her go to Padme's funeral, which is really interesting. But the much meatier and interesting character is you see 3 shorts of Count Dooku being a Jedi. You see him training Qui-Gon Jinn, and you see how their ideologies are different, and you see how Qui-Gon Jinn became the Jedi he is. You see him go on a mission with Mace Windu, where you see how idealistically he was disagreeing with the Council, and then you see his reaction to Qui-Gon being murdered, and finally his turn to the dark side. And that, like, a character that all of us like have been interested in and that we know is a fallen Jedi and everything, you add so much context to that character, and it's so compelling, the stuff they do with him. And the Ahsoka stuff is great. That's Tales of the Jedi. Tales of the Empire is supposed to be the Empire version, and one of them is a character that most of us hate from Clone Wars because she framed and almost got Ahsoka killed. And then the other character is a character that they introduced in one episode of Mandalorian that kind of plays like a kind of pivotal role in Ahsoka, but it's like nothing. These characters are nothing, and they did nothing interesting with them, and I'm so mad. I wanted like a Tales of the Jedi every year for the rest of my life, and instead they just made something that I don't want anymore. I don't want anymore. You ruined it. Sorry for my rant. I'm done.
Do you like the
necessary, I think.
Ahsoka show?
No. Yes, kind of.
I think that show looks very bad as well.
It looks terrible.
You haven't watched
it?
So
Doug? Bad.
I've
that came out
seen
after the
episodes of it. I did not watch the whole thing. I watched the last episode and I watched the first 2 episodes. That last episode's one of the worst shot fucking like pieces of TV I've ever seen. I don't know what the fuck is going on.
It looks really bad, and a lot of it is the volume, and it's just the thing is, it's a shame that you watched the last episode because the last episode may be the worst episode, but it's crazy because everything that everybody else on the internet has raved about that show, I think is bad. I think episode 4 or 5, whatever the Anakin episode is, there's just a Clone Wars episode, and they're just doing Clone Wars flashbacks, and you get Hayden Christensen back and whatever. It sucks. Hayden is bad in that episode. Like the shots, every shot is just clouded by just fog because they don't have the budget to make like a full Clone Wars battle. It looks bad. The clones look bad. The clones don't look, because the clones are all CGI in Revenge of the Sith and Attack of the Clones. So they have a very distinct look. So then they put humans in these clone trooper outfits. They look terrible. They look so bad. Some of them look like
cosplay.
Fat. It looks like cosplay. Like it's just, some of them, the Rex is chubby as fuck, and he's paper thin in the Clone Wars show, so it just doesn't work for me. But then I thought the new characters, specifically the Ray Stevenson character, Baylan Skoll, had like a really interesting arc and really interesting, and then he died. He died. The actor died in real life. Like the guy passed away, obviously RIP, but like, so now the most interesting, I constantly saw people complaining about Ahsoka, being like, this show fucking sucks, but the Hayden Christensen stuff was awesome. When I'm like the opposite.
No, see,
that's just like
that is
jingling
like
keys.
Yeah, that's like real like nostalgia stuff where it's like, I love the prequels as a kid. I love those movies. I love seeing this guy. This is my guy. And it's like, okay. I mean, it is a shame that it really is a shame that it took this long for the prequels, like revisionism, because it was always going to happen. It's a shame that it took this long for that to happen, and it's a shame that goddamn Dave Filoni was the guy to make that happen, and now he's making all these fucking terrible live action. Dave Filoni made a cartoon a lot of people like, and you love the Dave Filoni cartoon series, but like,
but he's not a live action director.
That's the thing. He should have exactly. That's the thing.
I say it all the time. Like his episode in Mandalorian season 1 is the worst episode of season 1. Now, he did one of the better episodes of season 2, but it still looks like garbage. Like he just can't direct live action.
No, he really can't. It's a shame that people like it enough, or Disney's just gonna keep letting him make more of this shit.
Well, they just got us. I don't think this is a part of Kevin's news either, but Sigourney Weaver is gonna be in that Grogu movie.
What the fuck is going on with
that? Is not part of the news.
Wait, it's called like Mandalorian and Grogu.
Terrible
what a
title.
terrible title.
Terrible title.
What is it, Batman and Robin?
I mean,
wait. Wait, those are two separate things, right?
No. They're two characters in the movie.
No, I know, but I'm saying Mandalorian is one show, and then
Grogu is Baby Yoda,
right?
In Mandalorian.
Yeah. Okay.
In the
he's in that show.
Okay.
Speaking of Mandalorian season 3 is so fucking garbage as well.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. But
bad.
I'm like struggling so much to follow all this. I didn't even know there was this many.
It's a lot. Okay.
Well, that's the thing.
I didn't even know they made more seasons of The Mandalorian. I thought
this is the thing about Star Wars, right? That I don't think I talked about this publicly very much because listen, I really like Star Wars. Owen loves Star Wars too. But it's like
he loves the wrong bits, but he does love Star Wars.
but the thing about Star Wars that now has become it's like I don't think a lot of people, if you're not really paying attention, understand how fucking terrible we have it. Where it's like Star Wars at one point was like that's what movies was Star Wars, like Star Wars was movies. So like they kind of like reinvented what the fucking fiction blockbuster was in 1977. Then they did the same fucking thing again in 1999 or into that whenever the second one, Attack of the Clones came out.
99, yes.
Like they totally just like reinvented the wheel twice with these Star Wars movies. Like and they made so much money. This is what movies were. It doesn't get fucking bigger and more experimental than this. It's insane. And now all Star Wars is fucking shitty TV shows on Disney Plus. That's all it is. There's so many. They're basically all bad. It's like they've diluted the brand so much where it's not even a movie thing anymore. There's more Star Wars TV content than there are movies.
Yeah.
Like from like an outside looking in perspective, like as somebody who's like not the biggest Star Wars fan, but I really liked Star Wars when I was a kid, like really liked it. I have vivid memories of me and my neighbor playing with lightsabers every week. We were very into it. But I remember that being like a thing. Like I don't like hear about stuff. Not that I don't hear about it, but like with all these shows coming out, like I don't regular people in my life, like I don't hear about it the way that like when I was a kid, it felt like the biggest thing in the world. Like it felt like Star Wars was like media.
The Force Awakens made like $1.5 billion.
Yeah,
I think it made $2 billion. It's one of the 5 highest grossing movies of all time.
It made, and then like all of those movies, like I think it's the last one, The Rise of Skywalker, was like the third most expensive movie ever made. I think
like
maybe
$500 million budget.
Force Awakens might be the most expensive movie ever made. But it's like they made tons of money because it's like the biggest thing on earth. And like Doug was saying, George Lucas kind of invented it's maybe Kirshner
redefined.
But no, I'm talking about specifically with Empire, good sequels to like blockbuster movies did not really to fantasy like blockbuster movies like we were saying earlier with like the straight to DVD stuff, like that shit did not like a sequel. Like when we talk about Apes too, like Charlton Heston did not return, like was like, nah, I'm not coming back for the second one because I don't like this genre bullshit. Also, sequels suck. Like that's like sequels basically sucked until like obviously like, it's different with, like The Godfather and stuff like that. That's like a different thing, right? But like sequels for like these pulpy like movies for kids, like were not good. Like they were not good to the point where like an older movie of like that kind, you didn't get a bigger budget. You got a smaller budget. The sequel got a smaller budget, even if it did great. But George Lucas kind of changed that because it was like, oh, we can actually make a good movie. And then again with the prequels, he invented in a way, or not invented, but pioneered the use of the digital camera. And all of George Lucas's kind of pioneering, and even like I think the volume too, you could put in that with like Star Wars pioneering. Like technology and ideas and ways to that cinema can be were kind of all like great in the hands originally, but all have been like taken and like learned the wrong lessons for and like contorted in like the weirdest ways. We're getting like just unnecessary garbage sequels that cost more but just like kind of lifeless. The digital camera is being used to just make things faster and lazier rather
Yes.
than with an attention. The big thing with the digital
it's not
camera,
art anymore.
it's not art anymore. But the big thing with the digital camera is, and I've kind of the more and the more I shoot on film and digital, I kind of have a further understanding of the reasons why the issues are happening. And a big thing with shooting on film is you have to fucking take a lot of pre-production into the shot, because
you have to be intentional when you're shooting with
it
film.
has to be so intentional on film, because if you fuck up a film, like on a shot on film, it's A, more expensive, but B, you just don't have an image. Like the image is fucked. If you like don't light that thing properly, if you don't fucking shoot it properly, the image just comes out like garbage and unusable. If you shoot something bad on digital, you can go like in post and save it, but it's never going to look great, but it's going to look serviceable because you can save the image. Using shooting on film, like you have to be so precise or you just don't have an image and you have to reshoot it, and it's just a whole mess and it's expensive. So the digital camera and the stuff that George Lucas is doing was all intentional. Like all the stuff that he was doing was with intention, and I think there's so many great digital films. Like if you talk about like Michael Mann and all like Speed Racer, and there's so many you can go on and on and on about all these great digital films that only can exist and only can look like that with the digital camera. But then there's hundreds of movies that come out every year now that are just complete garbage, and they are made in like 10 weeks with just you just shoot them like really fast and manufactured. It's the manufacturing of cinema, and it's like everything that George Lucas kind of has touched, and everything that Star Wars, the franchise, has kind of touched that was at one time good and pioneering and experimental, has now kind of created what we know as like modern entertainment and media and art. Like everything that kind of is the video medium or the visual medium, I would say, kind of has to, like the bad stuff, a lot of it has to blame for Star Wars in a weird way. Like it's like every lesson that you could take from these original 6 movies, like the positive lessons that we could like further the cinema with, they took like all the wrong lessons from every like wrong kind of way you could take that. But it's just like, how do we make the most money and the fastest, like cheapest possible thing? And there's like, I wouldn't say Star Wars, but the kind of concept of the jingling keys, and like we can throw characters that people remember from their childhood and people will show up for that.
Yeah, that's Marvel.
Exactly. The Marvelization of Star Wars and just like any popular IP has now allowed for in conclusion with like the digital camera and all that stuff, everything that like has led up to like the worst possible outcome and like people swarming to show up for it.
Well, yeah, but now people aren't swarming anymore. It's interesting what Kevin said.
It's gonna hit
It's interesting what Kevin said, because Kevin was like, "Oh, I'm not even like aware of these TV shows anymore," and he was like, there was a certain point where it was like it was still an event. I remember when the Mandalorian came out, right? It was still around the time of the Rise of Skywalker, when like they both came out around the same time, the first season of the Mandalorian, and when the first season of the Mandalorian came out, that was such a big fucking deal, because everybody was like, it's a Star Wars TV show, there's a baby Yoda, Werner Herzog is in this. It was like it was huge. It was like everybody was like, oh my fucking god. And it looked good. They invented a whole new fucking way to shoot scenes.
Greg Fraser shot that.
Greg Fraser shot the fucking first season, and it looked good. And Pedro Pascal he's like a star with that voice performance. And then like, oh, season 2 of The Mandalorian's out, and it's like, oh, it's like not as good, but like guess what? People like The Mandalorian were like coming because Greg Fraser wasn't involved anymore, and it looked worse. But people that really like the first season came back and were like, I still like this, The Book of Boba Fett came out, and people were like, oh, this is it, it's over, we lost. We lost.
That's where they lost people, because you got to remember.
I didn't even know that was a TV show.
You got it.
Never even heard of it.
You got to remember, like, the end of Mandalorian season 2 is the Luke thing, and
Yes.
people went nuts for that.
Yeah.
Whether it looked bad or not, I thought it looked
No, but it
very
was like a
questionable.
big thing. That
But
was
it
that
was
was
a
still an
huge-
event that people
Well,
were like,
that was
oh my
a
god,
huge deal.
oh my
but
god,
then
yeah.
Boba Fett is where you lost everybody. Boba Fett's where you lost everybody.
Because the Boba Fett thing, I think that is like peak. If you want to talk about what Owen was saying, it's like making something with intention. Obviously, he's talking about like shooting images with intention, but like Boba Fett is like writing with intention. They did not write. They didn't know what the fuck they were like. Oh, we need to do a Boba Fett show, and it's like, Mandalorian season 2.5. It's basically what the fuck they did.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
No, it really is brutal. It's crazy. It's like Boba Fett isn't even in like the last fucking 2 episodes of the Boba Fett show. It's like
There
it's
are
crazy.
2 episodes, I believe there are 7 episodes of Boba Fett, 5 and 6 he's not in.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and,
Hey, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Well, like here's the thing where I think they really actually like it's like talking about like losing people like in Boba. So in the end of Mando season 2, right? Mando and Grogu part ways. Mando hands off Grogu, and it's like, okay, this is where our journey ends. Then in the Boba Fett show, Mando and Grogu reunite, and now at the beginning of Mando season 3, Mando and Grogu are together again, doing another adventure. So if you did not watch the Boba Fett show, if you're just like, oh, I like the Mandalorian, right? And you're like, I don't really care about the Boba Fett show, I don't care about Boba Fett. So like, you watch Mandalorian season 1 and 2, right? And you're like, oh man, what a great ending. Luke is like, there's Luke there, and like, and like they're gone. So now season 3 is gonna be like Mando on his own. Then you tune up for season 3 of Mandalorian. It's like the ending of season 2 didn't even
It
happen.
makes me think so much about the fucking Game of Thrones writing, where like they just set something so clearly up for like 6 seasons, and then they get to the end and they're just like, what if these characters were entirely different people?
It's because they just want to sell. I mean, dude, that Baby Yoda machine, that thing makes so much money. That's why. I mean, I'm telling you, the women look. There's always been women fans of Star Wars, and there's been a huge. I don't know if you guys. I'm sure Kevin hasn't seen any of this, but recently there was a huge discourse with a major Star Wars creator that said that women don't like Star Wars. And it was
Are you talking about Star Wars theory?
It was a whole.
Yeah.
It was
No idea what you're talking
It was a disaster. It was a disaster. So then every Star Wars creator on TikTok, they had a sound, and it was like, women don't even like Star Wars. Let men have their own thing. And then it's a girl, and she's dressed up like Padme, and then this and that, or whatever.
Oh wait, I did see that.
Yeah, it was a huge
I
thing.
did see those TikToks.
It was a huge thing. Look, if you're gonna be an asshole, like don't be an asshole. Like women should be allowed to like Star Wars. You're being a weirdo. You're being a weird guy. You're a weirdo, right? But the women fan base of Star Wars has grown exponentially thanks to this little green motherfucker with ears. I mean, exponentially. My girlfriend Rachel is a much bigger Star Wars fan because of The Mandalorian. And let me tell you, she loved Mandalorian season 3. She has no idea why so many people didn't like it. No idea. Doug, she would come on here on this podcast with a straight face and go, Doug, I think you're tripping. I think Mandalorian season 3 is great.
I think there's a lot of people like that. But I think there's also a lot of people that are more like me. Maybe not exactly.
I think there's
me.
a lot of people who
100%.
just, I think there's a lot of people who just reward continuity, like in any show where it's like once you invest in a certain amount of a TV show as opposed to movies, like once you've watched, if you just make a great first season of a TV show, people will just come back and watch the next one and they won't even realize that it's worse because they've already spent a whole season with characters that they like. So they're just like, oh, I like this
guy. I can't believe he's back.
Because it's not like a movie where it's like when you're watching a movie, you notice whether it's good or bad. But like once you're invested in a TV show, you could make as many bad seasons as you want.
It also becomes like a part of like a routine, you know?
No,
No, I mean, I've done that with a number of my favorite shows that end up sucking at one point. I don't care. Like, I'm like, I already like these guys. So
that's what was so fun about season 1 of The Mandalorian and Andor was like, it was like, oh, when the new episode comes out, I'm fucking watching with my friends, you know? It's like, that's what we do.
I mean, that's how I felt watching fucking Euphoria season 2, where like everybody in the world was watching that shit and we were like, this fucking sucks. And we came back every single week. We're like, we're going to keep watching.
How inexplicable. I'm sorry to go back to fucking Star Wars land, but how inexplicable is it that we, in the span of a year, got a show about Boba Fett, one of literally the greatest character designs in the history of cinema. The T-visor is iconic.
People love him just because he looks cool.
Like, exactly. He's a nothing character. He's a nothing character in Empire Return of the Jedi. But so you make a character about one of the most iconic looks in the history of cinema. People love this character because of how cool he looks. Okay. And one of the most beloved characters in all of Star Wars, where you are bringing back Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor, two actors that have not played their roles since 2005. You make those two shows, and yet the Golden
wrong.
Globe Emmy-winning writing and the only effort you put into goes to the second lead of Rogue One.
Yeah, well, because
that's the show you take seriously.
Writing with intention. Because Andor is like, guess what? Tony Gilroy made those characters, and he was like, "Hey, I have some like really good ideas for like what Andor was kind of doing before Rogue One happens." And they're like, "Okay," and it's like, "Yeah, it's gonna be a fucking like spy espionage thing, and there's not gonna be any lightsabers, and there's not gonna be actually any stormtroopers for like 3 episodes at all." And it's like, so what's Star Wars about? It's like, oh, just this nothing really. It's like, yeah, it's awesome.
it's incredible. Like, it's unbelievable how good Andor is. Like, I was watching it, I was like constantly floored. It's just ridiculous. And again, this goes back
I think there's like no Star Wars iconography for the first like 3 episodes of Andor. Like nothing that is distinctly Star Wars. Yeah.
No, nothing. And yet it's still great. And again, it's like it goes back to the original idea that's so brilliant by George Lucas and the original people that made Star Wars, that Star Wars is all about real people, that like crazy, never could happen things are happening to real people. That's what Star Wars is. And they lost that with the prequels, because the prequels, none of those people are real. None of those people talk like real people. You lose them. Samuel L. Jackson is over here saying,
"It's Shakespeare.
The oppression of the Sith will never return. You have lost.
Awesome.
Not a real person.
So cool.
Sorry, not a real person. Sorry."
I hate real people.
That's the thing.
I don't want real people on my screen.
Like, Andor is that.
It's melodrama. It's Shakespeare.
Yeah, Andor is. There's another thing I think that we're approaching with the Star Wars thing. That it's like, it's so crazy how like the suits, how like not like suits like Star Wars suits, but suits as in like corporate suits.
Right.
How they refuse to understand what like really works, because the reason why the first season of Mandalorian also like really worked is because these are 2 original characters. It's like the leads of Mandalorian are this guy who is original character, new actor, and this character who's like, granted, Baby Yoda or Grogu is like, obviously it's like looks like Yoda, right? But it's not Yoda. It's a new guy. And that's it. And like, oh look, you just made something iconic out of thin air. And so like, but now it feels like since that was successful, now they're like milking that. There's no like, and now they like went back to the well, and now they're milking all of the fucking Dave Filoni Clone Wars characters, like the Ahsoka show, and what's the other Dave Filoni show? They're going like like Obi-Wan was kind of like that too, but now they're milking like these like cartoon characters that it's like they're gonna run out of shit to milk, and like it's like they seem like to refuse to make new stuff, and they also are refusing to make movies. That's the craziest thing about this whole Star Wars thing to me, that I find the most frustrating, because I fucking hate TV. I don't like watching TV. But I'm like, their refusal to make movies, the fear of making movies is so fucking crazy. It does not make any sense.
I think of I don't know, I listen to a lot of these audio commentaries with George Lucas, and I think you could honestly make an infinite amount of Star Wars movies, and they could all be good, because the thing with Star Wars is they are serials. That is the big thing with George, is like these 1930s like serials, and you could just make movies that like one-off movies with like new characters in these cool worlds, and just tell interesting stories with like, there's already like so many interesting like visual ideas in Star Wars, but you could just, I mean, like, I think Andor's cool. It's not like it's a cool idea, and I think it's cool that it exists. It's not really interesting to me, like on an aesthetic thing. But I think like that is a good like way to do it. It's like you make a new character, you just plop him in the world, and you tell a good story. I just think but I think it should work in movies. Like, I think you could just make like movies like with like, you can just tell like a story about a Jedi who existed like 1 billion years ago, and like you just tell a cool story, and then instantly you make like a fan favorite character, and you sell 1 billion toys. Like, I think it's like those movies like sell so many toys because like they just create cool guys. Like I don't know. It's like I think it's such a layup, and it's like such a weird like fumbling of a bag.
Speaking of being aesthetic, another reason why Andor works on so many levels is because Andor refused to use the volume. That was a creative decision that was used from immediately, where they're like, we are not going to use the volume at all in this show, and it immediately makes it look distinct from all the other fucking shows that
But
look the exact same.
I'll give my piece, but I don't think it's the same thing with like the digital camera and all that stuff. The volume inherently is not like an evil product, right? It is just it's a thing that can be really used quick and fast, and people who don't know how to use it, right? It's a new piece of tech. And if you're just like, we're going to use the volume no matter what, and you're going to shoot in the volume, and you're going to do this in X amount of days, and we're going to, we're going to do it this way, and we're going to do it like a cost-effective way, and we're going to use the volume because like we use the volume, it's going to look like garbage, right? But Francis Ford Coppola is using the volume on Megalopolis, right?
It looks so good. Yeah.
Pulling that all in, right? It looks amazing because Francis Ford Coppola is like a genius filmmaker, and he knows like he wasn't going to use the volume if he didn't like understand it and like use it like intention. So
he had ideas, right? He had visual ideas that were tied into using that during the production.
And Greg Fraser, like with inventing the volume, like Greg Fraser used the volume on the Batman. The Batman looks amazing because it's intention. So yeah, it's just I don't know. Star Wars.
Okay, let me somehow try to bring this back to the fact that this wasn't a conversation about Star Wars.
Actually, I'm so sorry, but I do have to go.
That's okay. I didn't know we were going to talk about Star Wars for 45 minutes.
No, that's entirely my bad. But Star Wars is my jam. And it just bothers me to see it be garbage. So I love you guys a lot. Thank you guys for having me on again. It was a huge honor. This is my favorite show to be on. I love you guys. Keep up the great work. You guys are the funniest people on the respective apps that we're on. But yeah. I do, however, ask that the next time we do one of these, doesn't have to be tomorrow or anything, but the next time we do one of these, I would prefer it not to be an ambush where I am attacked. I feel personally attacked.
I don't even really dislike any of these Apes movies that I watched. Okay, it's just that Owen and Doug are loud. And
yeah, and Rice sucks. Rice is so bad.
That's fair. But all right, guys, I love you guys so much. Thanks for having me as always. Y'all have happy Mother's Day to your various mothers.
Happy Mother's Day to everyone watching.
To your mother.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. All right, see you guys.
Right,
love
bye,
you.
Alex.
Bye.
Okay.
It's the
let's
what
do
we have left?
Let's just do a quick yay or nay on the rest of
All right, let's do a little nay or yay.
A little speed round. Okay, first up, Sydney Sweeney to star as boxer Christy Martin in an upcoming biopic from director David Mykod. He directed The King, The Rover, and famously Animal Kingdom, which turned into a TV show.
Yeah,
The King is bad.
But the people like The Rover.
Yeah,
people like The Rover. I really want to watch that Animal Kingdom movie he did because I remember I watched that TV show when it came out and I didn't realize until more recently that it's based on a movie.
Here's the thing with David is he is a good actor's director, right? He can get a performance out of an actor. So I think this is good.
And this is a biopic. That's like an actor movie.
Yeah, I think this is good for Sydney Sweeney. I think this could be like a surprise a surprise prestige film that like gets some nominations maybe for Sydney Sweeney. Who knows? It could be totally like I
mean, these kinds of movies usually like you could get a really good shot at like an awards push if you're doing like a boxer kind of thing. I
think Sydney Sweeney's really big right now, and I think this is again actor's director biopic. I think this is great for everyone involved.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, Sebastian Stan and Lily James to star in psychological horror film Let the Evil Go from director Christian Taftrup, who did Speak No Evil, not the new one that's coming out this year, but the original Speak No Evil that came out 2 years ago. Yay or nay?
Sure. Sebastian Stan is cool. Unfortunately,
you guys watched it, the original Speak No Evil?
No, I don't think Owen would like that.
I'd like to check it out. I'm curious.
I don't know. I don't really have too much skin.
I like Lily James a lot.
I like original horror movies. So
I like Lily James a lot. I don't really have very strong feelings about Sebastian Stan. I don't know if I could think of like what my favorite performance of his would be, or like what I even really like.
The Winter Soldier.
I mean, I watched that movie Fresh, which I didn't like. He's in Black Swan. I don't even remember him in Black Swan.
He's
Is
like
he
a
like
small character.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, he's really not in stuff. He was in I, Tanya, like another forgettable. I mean, he really isn't in stuff.
Brother.
He really isn't in stuff that I care about at all, is he?
Yeah, I'm not too big on him. I say like the actors. I don't know. I'm not too crazy, but
he's gonna be. I mean, he's playing Trump in that. What's it called?
Yeah, that looks really bad.
That's
The
not-
Apprentice.
my new favorite guy.
Yeah, The Apprentice. Okay.
Oh,
another
my
piece of
new
news.
favorite guy.
Oh,
Hello,
let's
my
go.
friend. You have been
Another
promoted.
piece of news, TV news. Shogun season 2 is officially in development. Hiro
Did any of you,
Yuki
did either of you
Sonata
finish that?
I
has
did not
closed a deal
finish-
to return.
Yeah.
I did not even finish the first episode.
Yeah, 'cause you're a
Let's
loser, bro.
Go.
You didn't finish the show either.
Yeah, I watched like multiple episodes.
Okay.
So I watched
and,
multiple.
and where are you now? Where are you now? Huh?
I don't
On
like
watch it?
podcast. He's
Yeah.
the podcast.
Yep.
No,
Did you
Shogun.
think at all about continuing it? I don't
Oh,
think
we
so.
didn't even give it a
Here's
thought.
here's the thing about this, right?
Mhm.
They adapted the whole book. It's based off a book.
Yeah, it's based off of. I saw the book in Barnes and Noble, and I was like, "Oh, that's
It's a
that happens to me
book.
all the time when like a new thing comes out, and then you go to Barnes and
Fair
Noble, and I'm like, oh, this is based on a book."
Yeah, no, it's
I-
based off a book.
Yeah, I don't know. So
And-
season 2 is gonna be not based on a book. It's just
No, because
original
they
writing.
adapted the whole book.
Dude, man, I
really
hate to
good
always bring it up, but like when this stuff happens, I just get Game of Thrones flashbacks all over again. I'm like, this is like the scariest prospect in the world to me is a TV show continuing after like the books stop being made. I don't even want to think
Also,
about
I'm
it.
pretty sure the book is like nonfiction. I'm pretty sure it's like about like a real guy.
Oh, interesting.
So maybe that's
there-
not
Oh,
true.
There's not-
yay,
so
nay
that
on
means
that one.
there's
I
not
mean,
I don't
it's a
know.
nay for
You don't even
Ellen,
need a
but-
book because he's real.
I feel I love this energy. Why can't we have this energy every fucking week, dude? The thing about the Shogun thing that I think is interesting is that the showrunners, like the creator of the show, came out and was like, "No, we
They
are
were
not
like,
even."
we do not want to do a second season at
He was like,
all,
"We're
bro."
not even considering a second season
Yeah.
because
How much do you think they got paid?
bro, I think that FX sat them down, put a gun on the table, and was like, "Listen,
Man, no, but like the quotes of them from like literally just a
line
month
ends
ago,
here,
they were
cowboy.
like, we have absolutely no interest in season 2. There is no point in making it.
because like their answers were like because they were being asked about it, and they were like, no, like the show ends like it's the end of the book, and the end of the book's really good. So
Yeah.
it's like."
Sucks.
They made a show
I mean-
about a book, and now they're like making a show more. It's
Yeah.
like they did the whole book.
It's dumb.
There's no
Yeah,
more book.
it's dumb. But the show's a hit. It was like the biggest show on what is it, Hulu? It was the biggest show on Hulu for like
Yeah, I think it's like the most streamed FX show.
yeah.
Yeah,
Which is, I mean, a
Whatever
huge
that
deal.
is.
I mean,
plenty of ads. Let me tell you about that. Holy,
yeah, they're
A
everywhere.
Super Bowl ad. Yeah, like
yeah,
big
man,
show.
it's like fucking
Okay.
Oh, my computer that invested. in
Ralph
my-
Ineson. Ralph Ineson has been cast as Galactus in
fuck.
the
Why
Fantastic
didn't you bring
Four.
this up while Alex was here?
Well, we talked about one piece of news and then we talked about Star Wars for 45 minutes. What do you want me to do, man? I
Shit.
didn't know that was gonna
The
happen.
expert, the guy that fucking cares, just left. So
Yeah.
here's an interesting thing about this, right? We can tie this back into Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Josh Friedman, again, an Avatar guy, he's writing this movie, Fantastic Four.
Yes, but Matt Shankman is directing it, Doug.
Yeah, who the fuck is that? What the fuck is Matt Shank?
Oh my!
All right, you got me.
so
You got me.
That's a nay, I guess. I mean,
I think he's
that's
a.
a yay.
It's not a yay.
Yeah,
it's,
Well,
I
like,
think
it's,
Ralph.
the casting
Ralph-
is a yay.
I mean, okay. Let me tell you this: if this was existing in a universe where Disney was not Disney and little old me, right, was just making a separate Fantastic Four movie that had no prior like strings or hands in it, I think Ralph Ineson is good casting. I think he's a good actor, and I think it's a good casting as well because he's not like you're not just like getting a name for like this big character. I think you're getting a voice, and he's got a great voice. So I think it's a yay on the casting. I think it's a nay on the project because the project is just there's no way this is going to be good. But I think like this is my favorite probably casting of the entire Fantastic Four so far. I also think they added John Malkovich and
That was also part of this news, but I didn't. Yeah, that was.
So John Malkovich is like we can talk about it now. But John
Untitled
Malkovich,
character.
untitled character. It's
Yeah.
probably going to be. I don't know where I saw it, but it was like someone who like is smarter about these movies and like has like more skin in the game. And they were just talking about how like Marvel likes to kind of get these prestige actors like Robert Redford and guys to just play like
small roles.
Small roles.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I
normally,
saw
like,
somebody
just
say like probably Mole
I could
Man.
already like picture the role.
Mole Man. See, that's the thing. Mole Man would be far more interesting, but I can predict. I would, if I had betting money in the game, I would predict he's like just like a someone in the government, someone just like
Yeah,
normal.
that's what I was thinking. That's what I was
that's
saying. Like he's just gonna be like a sidekick. He's gonna be there to be funny or whatever. Like
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
the boring thing because it's John Malkovich. But I think their whole thing with these like the thing with like they're traditionally when they get these like big name actors, it's kind of for a role that doesn't really matter, but they're going to deliver dialogue and they're going to be there and they're going to be important. And it's like a name to put on the poster or to just kind of give the film more prestige and credit. Or like it has John Malkovich in it, but it's not really like an important character. But like Mole Man would be really fun. I just not sure if that's going to be what it is. There's another actor who is really maybe is on the cast that I don't remember his name, but he is really cool as well. But he also is untitled.
Right.
But I think those three, forgetting the guy's name, but Ralph Ineson, John Malkovich, and the other guy, are far more interesting castings than anybody else in the stupid.
I think
four.
it's
In the main
well
four.
casted.
I like the main four.
I like the main four. I think it's well casted. I think I like this writer a lot. I like Josh Friedman a lot. Listen, I like the art.
I hope the movie ends up being good.
I think
Nope,
I think Fantastic Four was like awesome. I think it's
It's like
awesome.
these are the biggest characters, not including X-Men, but X-Men already has like movies that people have been milked to fucking death. This is the biggest thing that Marvel has that they haven't really done anything with.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Tim Story film's fine, but like I think there's so much possibilities for
it's Matt
really
Shackman. I'm learning.
yeah.
Sorry.
I think there's a possibility for like an all-time movie to be made with like a the Batman level Sam Raimi Spider-Man level like movie, but I just don't think it will happen in this.
Oh, Julia Gardner as
Silver
why did you
Surfer.
say her name like
what? I forgot about that.
It's
That's
just Julia.
I think that's cool. That's not the person I was talking about. Are you on the cast?
I am. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
There's someone else. He was like the Tarantino movie he was talked about for. But Julie Gardner of Silver Surfer is cool as well. I just
Paul Walter Hauser is listed.
That's what it was. Paul Walter Hauser.
Okay.
Who's I think that's a cool name. I think he's cool. People are saying he's gonna be the robot guy, Herbie. I mean, that'd be fun.
Oh yeah, everybody wants that guy from that podcast I really like to be the robot guy.
He's a podcaster.
Yeah, he's a podcaster. Yeah, well, he's an actor too, but he's like a small actor. But that his day job is the podcast.
Ricky Gervais?
No.
Ricky Gervais.
Griffin Newman from Blank Check is his name. He was in the movie Draft
podcaster
Day.
to play.
Well, he was the guy in the It. He was the sidekick in the Tick. Sorry, the Tick show. Yeah, there was like a big movement. There was like a hashtag and everything. They wanted him to play.
Oh, yeah, if it gets a hashtag, that's a big deal usually.
Oh, it's official.
Okay. Next piece of news. This is like kind of significant news, I guess. Olivia Wilde to star in Greg Araki's I Want Your Sex, which is his first movie in 10 years, I want to say.
Yeah, Greg Araki's washed.
Yeah,
and I feel like
Olivia Wilde is annoying.
Yeah, has Olivia Wilde been in a movie other than the one that she directed recently? Like a lot.
Yeah.
She was in Amsterdam, right?
Oh, was she?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, Doug watched that one.
No, I just meant like over the past few years. You know, like when's like
Olivia Wilde? She
was in Babylon.
Yeah, in Babylon.
I mean, she was in like 2 minutes.
Oh, Richard Jewell.
You know, she's in it.
With Paul Walter Hauser.
She's in the Ghostbusters movie. No, she really is not in a lot of stuff recently.
Yeah, because
she's trying to go on tour mode.
Yeah,
she's going on tour mode.
Okay, so I'm assuming that's a nay.
Well, so my thing is like I don't like it's I cannot get excited for. I cannot get excited for Olivia Wilde.
Yeah.
Right? Even though she's cool. I don't know. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
then
can't get
the
excited
Greg-
for Lily Wild. Gregor Rocky's washed. Like
he's washed.
he's
You know what
washed.
Gregor Rocky's done recently? TV shows that people really hate.
He's making TV.
You know who's
making
not
TV.
washed is the director of our final
TV.
News. I don't even know why I put this in here. Actually, a sequel to Red, White, and Royal Blue is in.
Hey, wait, good way to end an episode, Kev.
Oh, did we talk?
Alrighty.
Did
Alrighty.
we talk about
We talked about Nicholas Galatzine.
Nicholas
when we-
Gladstein?
What?
Nicholas Glad. What's his
Man,
name?
he's got to change his last name if he really wants to be
Yeah.
a star. Dude. I mean, nobody knows how to say
Can he
that.
swap with Nick Jonas or something? I don't know, man. Holy.
No. He's bad. He's bad.
Yeah,
no, he's
bad.
not.
I
I mean,
mean, he's in nothing but bad movies, so it's literally impossible to tell.
Yeah, it's
Like he has
was
not been in a movie where he can act like
he
like an
was
actual
bad in that
actor.
Anne Hathaway movie.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Well, you know,
Obviously.
not everybody feels the same way, but
We should have
okay.
on that one.
I don't know why I put that in there, but
He's also did we talk about this? We probably did talk about this. That's all I have to say about him. Why does he look like that? He looks like
Yeah, what the
yeah,
fuck?
yeah,
Why does
I
he
really
look like that?
I really don't like. the
Stop
way-
putting men that look like that in my movies.
Yeah. What a interesting guy.
What's that?
Okay.
That's what you were
We're gonna wrap up there. Next week, episode
you set me up.
67. We are going to be talking about I Saw the TV Glow, assuming that I could get a ticket to
Assuming
watch
that
I Saw
Kevin
the TV
and
Glow.
going
If
to
not-
New York. or
Kevin will
something.
just like
Yeah.
moderate a conversation between me
If
and
not,
Owen
we're
talking
gonna
about
just
I
talk
Saw the
about,
TV Glow.
no, we'll talk about John Krasinski's If. I think if I saw
Yeah.
the TV Glow.
Maybe you can do that by yourself. I don't know.
Okay,
You
yeah.
could- You could talk with your
How
if,
many-
you know, you
how
can
many-
imaginary
how
friend. You talk
many
to your
views-
imaginary friend.
How many
on the
views
pod.
would a podcast of just me talking about If?
Probably 7. Oh, jeez, holy.
Not even double digit.
No. Hey,
I'm
man.
gonna tweet it like you guys are here though.
Then you may get a couple more.
Okay.
I think our yeah, dude, holy.
Next week I Saw the TV Glow. We will
Yeah,
see you next
possibly.
week.